Hi, this is Xander. I'm a product manager at Salesforce, the product manager for navigation experience, which includes Lightning Console. And I've been posting a lot about how I really want to get people excited about creating great user experiences on Salesforce. I believe it's possible, and you just need some tools to do it. So I'll see if I can give you some of those based on my experience. It's about 15 years of experience as a product manager and user experience designer. So I'm not formally trained or anything, but just by hacking my way through UX with starting with Microsoft Paint and Photoshop, or sorry, actually not Photoshop. I have tried and failed to learn Photoshop, but Microsoft Paint to PowerPoint to Visio and Google Slides. This is kind of what it boils down to. So it's not really evolved that much in the last probably 10 years, but I still do it on probably a weekly basis. So I just thought I would show you at least how I personally approach these kinds of things. So I'm just going to tell you a little story about two people who are using Salesforce, a business owner and a customer. I often use small businesses as the sort of the threads of my stories because it's easier for people to relate to, and it also keeps things simple. You can be like, all right, here's one person trying to connect to one other person, and not like go into the boring stuff about, and now this department does this and this department does this. So that's when I just want to start with a simple concept. But before I go into the wireframes, this really started with a whiteboard. So me and my fellow probably 4 product managers and UX designers in a room, we thought through what's the story we wanted to tell, and broke it down into boxes, knowing that these would ultimately evolve into the different mock-ups that we wanted to create to tell the story. And it helped us play with this. So much easier on a whiteboard. You can just erase things, move things around. So in about an hour, we came out with just a nice little story that helped us showcase some things that we want to talk about. So always start on a whiteboard in real time in a room. That's my advice, because you want to make sure you're headed in the right direction as a team. Okay, so then after that, so we wrote it out in a essentially just a Google document and talk about for each of these screens, which we already knew what they were. What were the different bullet points? So these are in this document down below. And then the wireframes themselves. So I would call pretty low fidelity wireframes that are very hacky. Like you can see this is all really just based. I just overlay shapes over a screenshot from my actual my my own org that I use for my own demos, and then just put shapes on top of them. For things like list views, rather than try to recreate those element by element in Google Slides, I just take a screenshot from my app and paste it onto the wireframe. You see, I do take care to do some things. So in this case, she's a ski shop owner, but she's also one-man band, so she's also doing ski tune-ups when it's slow. So rather than saying, oh, here's my related view cases, I just say it's tune-ups due tomorrow. So that's how she stays organized. Jenna in this case. Two browser extensions, which I use all the time, are Color Pick Eyedropper. So you'll see that the background color on this list view is the exact same color as the background. And I just do that just by using this color picker. And I'll hover over there, get that hex code. And then when I go here and I create this as just a text box in Google Slides, you can go to the fill, do custom, and then put in the hex code there. So you can't really tell where one thing starts and one thing ends. It's a lot of illusion. Another thing about using the just a screenshot of my org is I get all the Chrome around it, because you really want to show what is the actual user experience, not just the stuff that you think you want to focus on, but what is the actual user experience? What does it look like when you have your tab shown and your browser extension? So this is not pixel perfect by any means, but it gives you sort of a general direction of where that's going. One thing that I don't do is try to keep the colors of the navigation region and the workspace tabs high fidelity, or true to life in terms of colors and fonts, and that's largely out of laziness, but also just because it helps us think about. I'm often showing this to people who maybe don't know console, so it just kind of helps reinforce that there are these two very different parts of the console, even though they look like tabs. They're very different things. Utility bar being green, that's a different thing. So it's really just to sort of help reinforce the mental model of how this virtual machine known as Lightning Console, how it's built and how it works. Okay, so you can go through the actual Google Slides, which I'll share, but that's just so here's another thing. So I also add comments a lot on here. Well, those are text, but I add comments here, and I'll go through the click-through demo in a minute. But these are just helpful to call out what are the things that are really important on this screen, or what do you want to focus on? Okay, so in this case, we ended up with 9 screens, and that's why this document is this weird shape, because we knew it would be, essentially this film strip of 3 different sections. So I always like to align the wireframes horizontally, because I do like a ton of copying and pasting, because there's some really great tricks for doing this. So I always line them horizontally, so you want to fit as many. Well, don't do 1 wireframe per slide, because it's harder to copy and paste across slides. Easier to copy and paste in the slide. And I usually start with 1 on the left, and then when I finish that one, I'm ready to go to the next one. Then I just, in this case, I'm on my Mac, so I hold down Option. Well, I select everything that I want, hold down Option, and then start dragging and hold down Shift, and it just makes another copy of it perfectly in horizontal. This is really useful because often, you'll have to iterate on this. You're like, oh, I got to this part and I forgot about this. So in this case, we wanted to end with a weather utility. So I created this, just weather utility button here. But then I realized that I hadn't put that button on the first one over here. So rather than having to I'll show you. If I just take this, if I just copy that and then Command C, Command V, you'll see it creates it offline here, and then I have to kind of drag it back into line and then move it. So just as a time saver, I just do the same thing. Hold down Option, drag, Shift, so it's already in line, and this part is not ideal, but I drag it over, and then that's how I overlaid it on here. So it's a lot of unglamorous work, but once you get good at it, it's become second nature, and you could do things pretty fast. So again, very low fidelity, medium fidelity, just to tell the story. So here's the other thing. This is in this case telling the story about a ski shop owner and a customer. Ski shop owner is starting on her desktop, when she's just all by herself in the shop. Maybe it's her laptop, maybe it's her desktop, but whatever. Then the customer comes in and they're walking around the shop looking at different ski models. She's on her iPad. I try to do it in more or less scale, so you can see if you go from one to the other, they're different scales, because those things are also important. Like, what would this actually look like on the iPad? Maybe if you, if you go through that exercise of trying in wireframes, maybe you'll realize an idea is too complicated, or it's just not going to work on different screen resolutions or different devices. I know you didn't talk about this before, but if you bring, so this is, I do show the page layout that I'm using behind there. And by the way, that's Command Shift up, Command Shift down to move to front, move to back. So it's, more or less to scale in terms of how big a page region is. Hopefully to help address any issues as early in the cycle as possible and avoid rework. Okay, so created those screens. So we just did this last week. So we started this meeting around 11 a.m. where we did the whiteboards, and by 5 p.m. I had created these wireframes. So it's not like it's meant to be super fast and iterative. And then at 5 p.m. We presented it to our manager, made sure it was directionally correct with what he wanted. So again, how can we iterate fast knowing we have a deadline to come up to, and so on. So if we needed to go back literally to the drawing board, we have only spent 5 hours of that time, not a week or 2 weeks. Okay, so now let's say we got to this part. So now sometimes you want to show it to somebody without all this stuff, right? This is helpful for us as a development team thinking through the details and how do we get here. But now let's say we want to show it to somebody. You eventually want to show it as, I would call it higher fidelity mockups, actual SLDS designs and so on. But as a medium step, right, in this case, I just took screenshots, put it into another Google Slides, in this case, an actual 16:9 format, put it in full screen, and I could put this on an executive's desktop and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. Just click through. And you might have to, prompt through it or maybe drive for them, but you could have your stakeholder be hands-on with the prototype. Essentially, this is a prototype. So you could set the story like, okay, here's Jenna, and she's working in her ski shop, and she has a bunch of tune-ups she needs to do for next week. But she has a chat snap-in on her company's homepage, which a lot of her customers know to go to and start chats. Skipped a step. So here's a demo of in-app guidance. Let's say they're in a ski shop. They're very heavily weather dependent. I say a lot of our employees would want handy access to the weather, so they know should they put on a 10-degree wax or a 30-degree wax on a snowboard. So we say, hey, we put a new weather utility on there, and rather than just expecting people will notice it when they open the app for the first time, you can use this free in-app guidance feature to show that. Okay, but now Antoine is a regular customer, comes into the store maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and it pops up, and maybe Jenna would recognize him from the picture. Does a screen pop to his contact because he's already an authenticated user? He put in his email address, and it's matched to his contact. The chat shows up here on the left if you're familiar with chat, and you can put related lists on here for recommended skis. So this is the customer 360. Like, hey, I'm chatting with Antoine right now. I don't have time to go research his record or look in any other offline system or something like that. I just want it presented to me on the screen, all very conveniently. Obviously, there'd be lots of other details on here and stuff. And she can just, as a small business owner, develop that relationship with Antoine and ultimately make him successful and grow her business. In this case, with recommended skis, he says he's been looking to shop for skis. So she said, all right, let's see which ones are recommended. So you can click there. Pops up a new sub-tab. This is console after all. Let's see. So, okay, it says I'm only interested, or she wants to show him raw signals because she knows that they're a good match for him for whatever reason. Clicks that. Now it's only showing raw signals. Now she could, click on each of these or command click to open each one in a new sub-tab. But in this case, we said there's a see product details, or we'll just open all of them in sub-tabs. So click here. And again, I'm just clicking just on a fictitious spot on the Google slide. It's not like an actual envisioned prototype where you can say, if you click here, then go there. Although I have done those in the past with PowerPoint, but they're usually more trouble than they're worth. So in this case, it's like not a choose your own adventure demo. So click there, it opens up the model. It says, yeah, that sounds great. So she's going to create an order. This is an opportunity, but she probably doesn't use that word, so you can call it whatever you want. Okay, so it creates an order, put in the details, and ultimately she's trying to get him to come into the shop. And as you can see, I don't try to keep everything in sync, right? This chat has been the same for the whole thing, but you're just telling the story. People are mostly going to be listening to what you're saying, not reading every bit of text on the screen. Okay, and that's the end of this part. All right, so now we're going to switch to the iPad. Antoine is coming into the store. He and Jenna are talking, and so they're walking around looking at the actual skis in the shop while she has the iPad, so you can pull up all the technical specs, look at videos, whatever it may be. So now you can just talk about Jenna opening up her iPad, just hitting refresh, and because of the console server state is saved, or the tab state is saved on the server, it automatically loads up exactly where she was, all her tabs and sub-tabs, including the one that she was on. So she can jump right into this raw signal one, and then you can finish and they start talking about the weather, and are these going to be good for next week, whatever. So she expands the weather utility and sees that information there. And that's it. So it's a long way of giving a demo of this, but hopefully that helped talk about what's going on there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, xmitman@salesforce.com. Always happy to talk with people about user experience design, and I'm sure I have a lot to learn as well. So if you have any tips and tricks, please send them my way. And I'll make all these documents public, so at least you have a starting point. You don't have to build the shell of console to tell about this story specific to what you're trying to accomplish. All right, thanks for watching.